The Chicago Bulls' victory over the Philadelphia 76ers yesterday was one of their largest margins of victory on the season so far. But did it actually hurt the Bulls more in their lottery odds and their hunt for a top pick in this draft? We're going to talk a little bit about that. Plus, we're going to talk about the concerning slump that Coby White is in yet again. And this time, it's a slump where the Bulls really need him to step up the most. We're going to talk about all that plus more right after this.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bulls Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bulls news and content.
What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host, Air Hayes, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go ahead and get into this content for today, y'all. And when Zach LaVine was traded, right, I did an episode on the Bulls that need to step up the most after Zach LaVine's trade. One of those guys was Josh Giddey. Another one of those guys was Matas Buzelis. One of those guys as well was Coby White, right? And, I talked about the other opportunities that opened up for other people as well. You look at Josh Giddey over the stretch, 19.8 points per game, 8.1 rebounds, 5.1 assists, 2.7 three-pointers per game as well. He's shooting over 50% from three-point arc, since the turn of February. He's shooting 52% from the three-point arc as well. And then when you look at another player that, definitely needed to step up and that was going to get more opportunity after Zach LaVine went down, and that's Matas Buzelis. That first game back, he wasn't starting. He eventually moves into the starting lineup because of injuries, things like that. You look at Matas over his month of February, 14 points per game, 27 minutes he's averaging as well, 51% from the field, 34% from three, which, we know that Matas Buzelis definitely needs to work on the three, 3.2 rebounds, 2 assists per game, 1 block per game as well as Matas Buzelis averaging. So those are all things that are really starting to go in favor. Matas is definitely stepping up as well. We've had, some solid performances from Kevin Huerter over the last couple of games as well. Zach Collins played a good game last night. Julian and Dalen, Dalen Terry had his, career high last night. Now, it's great. Dalen still has a lot left to prove, more consistency, as does Julian Phillips. But one of the guys that we needed that was now moving into an opportunity to not only be the Bulls' highest usage rate player, but to be maybe the go-to scorer in a lot of places, has just not lived up to that so far. And that's Coby White, right? Now, he's averaged 17.5 points per game, 2.9 rebounds, 4.5 assists since LaVine was traded, and that was on January 9th. And that's not too far off his averages of the season. 18.1 points per game, 3.3 rebounds, 4.6 assists. So it's not that far off from his actual stats. The place where it's really fallen off for Coby White the most is the efficiency. And that's what's concerning about him, right? He's gone down to 39.6% from the floor since Zach LaVine was traded, right? Which is a concern there. He ranks in the 23rd percentile in field goal percentage within 3 feet of the basket, the 50th percentile from 3 to 10 feet, the 55th percentile from 10 to 16 feet, and the 19th percentile from 16 feet to the three-point range. So, it is what it is. He's 63rd percentile as well on three-point shots. And so Coby is, he's being solid from three-point range, right? It's cool, right? But then when you look at it, the more opportunities have actually not created what we thought, right? Is that at the rim is the biggest concern for Coby White right now. A player that I've had whole videos on, right? That the drives are where you want to see Coby White. The drives are what make Coby White special. That's where he creates. That's where he gets, his buckets at. And he's at the rim right now. He's getting more opportunities, right? He's at almost 14 drives per game. That's up from 12 drives per game with Zach LaVine when he's playing with Zach LaVine. Now, when Coby White had his best stretch of the season, he was averaging closer to 15 drives per game. That had him kind of more in line with what he got last year when he was playing well. So the number of drives are still decreasing, right? But the concern is the efficiency on drives has been decreasing. He went from 50.2% to 39.6% on drive opportunities, right? So it's definitely something right now that Coby White has not stepped up in the way that the Bulls have maybe hoped, and that the way that the Bulls frankly need him to. Now, this isn't to say that wins and losses are all on Coby White and his opportunities, whether he's converting or not. That's not what this is. This team's going to lose a lot of games regardless because we're just not a good basketball team, right? And but I think when you look at the way that Coby White has not really stepped up yet, it's a huge sign for concern, and especially for the future for Coby, right? And whether you're in the camp, and I think there's Bulls fans in two different camps when it comes to Coby. Whether you want to see the Bulls move on from Coby, or whether you want to see the Bulls actually maximize on Coby a little bit more, put him more in a position to be what he does good at. He's just not living up to that right now, right? And so, in a lot of people have talked, especially after the rumor at the trade deadline that there were 7 teams interested in Coby White. The finish to this season is really important if the Bulls do want to move on from Coby. I don't know, and I'm not, I'm past the point on whether I think they should or not. At this point, the Bulls are going to do some things that we don't necessarily all agree with or that we don't see, and that we don't have the full picture yet, because I think what you do in the draft is going to matter a lot in that as well. But even if you do want to see the Bulls eventually move on from Coby, he has to play better, right? And so, I'm not in the case where people are like, well, he's playing bad, let's get rid of him. It's like, all right, the value's probably not going to be there. Now, I understand the merits of, hey, if you just aren't in on a player, if you don't think a player is going to get better, if you don't think a player is going to be impact for you, why not move on from him? I understand that, the merits of that as well. But Coby's inconsistencies are something that just continues to not only rear its ugly head, but continues to just be the knock on Coby White, right? Now, I've said this before many times. I can see a world in which Coby White at 25 years old goes to a team with a different makeup, and maybe he can become a more consistent player for them. Now, I don't think that's going to be consistently over 20 points per game. I think it would be consistently maybe around what he is now, maybe 18, 19 with better efficiency. That's what you hope for. But Coby White on the season so far, 42.8% from the field. That's down from the 44% the last 2 years that he shot. And the three-point shooting percentage is at 36.8%, which is down from the 37% he shot it at the last couple of years, right? And he's taken the most three-pointers of his career, so there's that part of it. He's taken 8. His previous high was 7. So you got to look at that aspect of things as well. But there is something going on with this Coby White thing. Now, I mean, one of the easy things to point on to is just him and Giddey just don't fit together, right? That's always going to be an easy thing to point to because it forces him to be more of a jump shooter. But I think we're seeing that Coby White is getting opportunities as well to create a little bit, right? That's why his assist number is actually pretty solid. The assist that he's averaging is pretty good when you look at dual. Yeah, you were always running at least 3 guards out there theoretically. Well, not theoretically. In reality. But over the last 5 games, it's gotten even more concerning for Coby, right? 11 points, 11.6 points per game he's averaging over the last 5 games, 3.6 rebounds. He's only shooting 32% from the field and 21% from three-point range. Now, he is getting a steal per game, which is really good. He had a lot of steals in last night's game as well. He's getting to the free throw line a little bit more frequently. I like to see that from him. Also, I want to see Coby around 6 free throw attempts per game, at some point in the near future. But Coby got to get it together, man. I think that's it. Now, last 20, he's still averaging 18.1 on 44% shooting and 39% shooting from 3. Solid enough. 4.7 assists, 3 rebounds. Those are solid over the last 20. So hopefully this is just a slump that Coby's going to work himself out of, but at a time period where we're in an evaluation mode, right? Yes, we're still a bad basketball team. We're still going to lose a lot of games. When you look at the number of players that are stepping up, it will really be nice to have Coby White's name as part of that group that's stepping up. And as of right now, with a clear conscience, I can't say that. Now, he's had some games in there, of course, where he's looked like Coby White. That's always going to be that's the Coby White experience, right? Is that he's going to have some games. But after starting off the month of February with 4 straight games of over 20 points, right? And he had 5 if you count the last game in the month of January. He's only had 1 20-point game since, and that was Saturday against Phoenix. So, there's just it's that typical Coby White inconsistencies are there. And while you have players like Josh Giddey who are being more consistent, you got players like Matas Buzelis who isn't necessarily shooting the ball consistently, but we're seeing him get through with effort and the consistent effort that he's given. It's just, it sucks, right? And I'm a Coby White guy, right? I'm a Coby White fan. I would love for Coby White to be a part of this team long term. That's just my personal feelings on Coby White. I would love for him to be part of this team for the long haul. But, I mean, I got to be honest in which you're coming up with a contract extension. You're being hugely inconsistent. The team is not really in a place to really win basketball games. I would be remiss and outright lying if I didn't say that I can't see a world in which Coby White is eventually moved. That's not what I want. I would much more rather that Coby White steps up, him and Josh Giddey find a way to find their rhythm, right? And that Coby White ends up being a better player for the Bulls, right? But in objectivity, which is the overall name of the game here, is to be objective. You look at the 16.6 points per game that Coby White is scoring this month so far on only 37% from the field. I mean, listen, I said this over on Locked On Bulls, and this is just me in the critical basketball mind that I'm having. This isn't to slight Coby White or anything like that, but what Coby White's shown himself to be right now is an inconsistent score, right? And if you're looking between Josh Giddey, if it comes down to that, maybe it's not going to come down to that. And we have, as fandom, we're having a lot of conversations where it could be either Coby or either Josh Giddey. Maybe the Bulls don't view it that way. But in a world in which if you are viewing it as either going to be Coby or it's going to be Josh Giddey, if you're viewing it that way, and that's an if, right? If you're viewing it that way and being objective, inconsistent scores come almost a dime a dozen in the NBA. I'm just saying, right? Now, if he can be more consistent in the way he's able to drive, the way that he created so much last season, that's something that's not easily replaceable. But inconsistent scores are easier to replace than true facilitating point guards. Now, that's if you even need a true facilitating point guard. Well, as we see more now in the NBA, it is the scoring point guards that facilitate based off their scoring prowess, and maybe that's what you need as well, right? That's why I'm not trying to at all knock Coby White. I'm just trying to objectively talk about what we're seeing out here. And I think if people are being objective, you see this. So, we'll see what the future holds, man, overall for Coby. I hope that it doesn't come to this. Maybe I hope that, when it's all said and done, we're looking at this and we're just like, all right, listen, it was a slump. Coby finishes the season strong. We go in the next offseason looking at what we can get, or what we can improve on. And I would love for that to be the Coby White experience. But, it got to be Coby showing it. So we'll see what the future holds there. Now, with the Bulls win last night, it actually put the Bulls in a bit of a conundrum, right, when it comes to their draft selection. And not to say that should be the end-all, be-all. And clearly with what the Bulls are looking at and how they're playing, it doesn't seem right now that they give a shit about the draft lottery odds, right? And that could be it. Right now, the Bulls have the 8th worst record in the NBA. Had they lost last night, they would have been tied with the Brooklyn Nets as far as number of wins for the 7th worst record in the NBA. Had they and the Philadelphia 76ers would have moved up some. They right now have the 6th worst record in the NBA, which is where they need to be at. Their pick is top 6 protected. And you have these 3 teams with Philly, Brooklyn, and Chicago that are all supposed to be competing over the last playing spot, the 10th seed in the Eastern Conference, where it seems like they're all in a mad dash to avoid the 10th seed. Well, it seems like the other 2 teams are in a mad dash to avoid it. The Bulls are just kind of, it is what it is at that point, right? Chicago's now firmly in the hold of the 10th seed. Now there's still 20+ games left to play, so take that for what you will. But right now the Chicago Bulls have a 1.5 game advantage over the Brooklyn Nets, and we have a 2.5 game advantage over the Philadelphia 76ers with 24 games left to be played by the Chicago Bulls. Now, a 2-game lead isn't anything that's insurmountable when it comes down to it, but it is something that you have to look at and how things are going, right? Brooklyn Nets seem like they are, despite winning some games, that they may now be focused on keeping their pick. When you look at last night, their closing lineup was Cam Johnson, Nick Claxton, and 3 players you've probably never heard their names of. That's what they closed the game with, right? So they're firmly entrenched, clearly in tanking, trying to make sure that they have the best odds to try to go out and get Cooper Flag. And then when you look at the Bulls only won 2 games in the month of February so far. 2 games. We went 20 days without a win. And despite going 20 days without a win, we still have been in the 10th spot the whole entire time. And that is mainly because of teams like Philly. Philly is being way more egregious in their tanking than anything else. Now, if the Bulls are going to not make the plan, it's going to have to come via them maybe losing out of the next 24 games. Maybe they have to lose 20 of them. And I just don't know if I see the Bulls doing that, right? We'll see what happens there. But I think overall, as you're watching this mad dash towards the end of the season to avoid the final play-in spot by these 3 teams, And I know somebody also mentioned like Toronto could be another team that could, even though they're right now, they're 4.5 games back of the Chicago Bulls. Maybe they're going for the 3-7 in their last 10. I don't personally see that, but they aren't technically out of contention yet for it either. But it's going to be something interesting to watch, man. It's going to be difficult. It's going to be really difficult for the Bulls with the way that the Brooklyn Nets and the Philadelphia 76ers have shown so far. It's going to be difficult for the Bulls to not make the play-in. Now, what does that do to the Bulls' lottery odds, right? And, this is the interesting part. If the Bulls can just get out of the play-in, right, their odds at a top 4 pick go from 26% to 32%. The odds at the number 1 overall pick go from 6% to 7.5%. Now, you're going to need some luck in that either way, right? And I think that when you see it, like the teams that have the bottom 3 records, those teams don't always get the number 1 overall pick. So we'll see if the Bulls, Stacey King talked about it a little bit on the broadcast last night, saying that the basketball gods owe the Chicago Bulls something. I don't think the basketball gods are listening. I don't think they're listening to any hopes for the Chicago Bulls, in my personal opinion. But I think, this ending of this season is going to be a interesting one to watch for a few different reasons, for the storyline reasons. Also, the Bulls, like, I think when you get into the play-in, and I say this about positively, so I also say when it could negatively impact the Bulls, when you get into the play-in, the fact that it's a 1-game elimination, any given night, any one team could win, right? And so the Bulls could very well go from having a bottom 8 record in the league to potentially, let's knock on wood, right? I don't want to curse us, that they could very well increase or lessen their odds in the lottery. I don't know if I'm really going to pick them with some of the teams that are really projected right now to be in the play-in. You got Orlando, Atlanta, Miami, and then Chicago. I don't know if the Bulls, or if I pick the Bulls to come out of the play-in. That's a possibility, though, because, again, you never know. Like, who's to say that one of the teams that are in the play-in looks at it and say, hey, yeah, we made the play-in, but, it actually benefits us not to make it out the play-in. So let's go get this lottery pick. So you just never know how those things are going to shake out, right? So the Miami Heat, since the Jimmy Butler trade, have been up and down. They're 3-7 in the last 10. They've lost 2 in a row. The Orlando Magic and the Atlanta Hawks are both 5-5, and in their last 10, they're both on, have won their last game. They're not even on a real winning streak. So you have that aspect of it. The Detroit Pistons, which sit at the 6th seed, they're on a 7-game winning streak, which more people need to be talking about the Detroit Pistons and the way they're playing basketball. But so overall, the Bulls find themselves in a situation where it may come down to 2 games. You look at the March 13th matchup that we have against the Brooklyn Nets and the April 13th season finale that we have against the 76ers. Those could be games that are drastically important to lottery odds. Now, it depends on how things are going for both these teams over time. The Bulls have one win in 20 days, right? So the Bulls are still going to theoretically lose a lot of games. The Brooklyn Nets and Philadelphia 76ers are still going to lose a lot of games, but those matchups could be hugely important in what happens and who clinches that playing spot that it seems like most of the teams that are in here are trying to avoid. So we'll see what happens there. We'll see if the Bulls can avoid the play-in. Let me know what you guys think down below, right? And I asked this question to Pat, I think, off air. I don't think I asked it on air. And I asked it in the Discord as well, but I'm going to ask it here. If the Bulls were to, and this is a huge if they were to make the play-in because of the way Josh Giddey and Coby and Matas Buzelis are playing right now, filter in Julian Phillips, Dalen, Coby wakes up, whatever it is, how would you feel about that if it leads to the Bulls having way worse lottery odds than what they would have? Would you feel more strong about that because 2 pieces of the Bulls' young core are part of the main reasons why we're doing that? Or would you be a little disappointed because we still need to add drastic talent? Let me know what you guys think on that down below. Now, with that said, we got one voicemail that I want to get into as well. This one's from 8 Lives. Let's go ahead and play that now.
Oh, yeah, Hayes, come on now. You knew I was going to call back, bro. I got to defend myself. Nah, this 8 Lives. And I've been with you for some seasons, bro. Man, you probably couldn't even count on one hand how many times I have ever called in and just bashed a Bulls player. I hear you and other fans coming on here blasting the shit out of our players sometimes. Of course, I'll use the example with you with the, who I don't really even think all that bad, but you with the ball head whole shit. I'm glad you admitted that. I never call in and do players like that, bro. This is not about me just picking Giddey and not liking him, bro. I done watched 6 championships. I done watched all our rookies since Brad Sellers, Pfizer. I done watched a lot of garbage players come through the Bulls, man. Marcus Pfizer, what's his name? I've been watching the Bulls for, like, man, all my life, man. You know what I'm saying? I don't never just call in and bash no players for nothing. I just didn't like the way that you tried to say that I didn't have no substance behind what I was saying when I've been talking about Giddey the whole time. I was one of the first ones who called in and said, hey, when people were saying, oh, Coby's struggling, I'm saying no. I had to point out, wait a minute, y'all forgetting that Coby was just on the high and AK brought in a point guard out of all the positions. We didn't never need another point guard with the season that Coby was just coming off of. No, there's no too many other people that's stepping up that's talking about that, because for some odd reason, nobody really want to judge Giddey. I done seen us getting down on Dalen Terry. I done seen us getting down on other players that I felt didn't deserve it. So just because other people feel like Giddey don't deserve what I'm saying, that's fine. But I'm telling you, I don't like his handles. I told y'all I saw players looking at him when he was running around with the ball, not doing nothing. The only thing that I like about him is that he grabbed offensive rebounds. That's me. I don't look like Giddey, bro. It's trash to me. Period. I'm not calling him no names. I'm not bringing up his case like we would have been doing if it was another player, in my opinion. Because I done seen people do it, no matter what somebody say. I done seen us judge these other players, and he is getting all this preferential treatment, which is fine. I don't care. But to me, bro, he trash, bro. I mean, I don't know what else to explain it. When other people don't like players on the team, they call in and get to express how they feel about them. I'm not saying that people should agree with me. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, to me, if we start off the season with Giddey next year, I know we on some bullshit. I'm not asking nobody to agree, and I'm not just calling in with no substance, because I've been talking about Giddey trash since he been here.
8 Lives brother, my brother, bro. The thing is, bro, is that when you even talk about like me and Javon Carter, yes, I call him the ball-headed hoe as a joke, but my criticism of him is because of what he does on the basketball court. I can tell you, inefficient three-point shooter. He came here to be a defender. His defense has been trash since he's been on the Chicago Bulls, and I could talk about that, right? The things that you say is that Giddey running around the ball. Now, show me one play where Giddey was running around with the ball in his hands, not doing nothing. Show me one of those, right? Or you talk about things like everything else that you brought up had nothing to do with basketball-wise. But why'd they bring in Josh Giddey when we already had Coby White? We all said that. But that has nothing to do with you calling Josh Giddey a trash player. That doesn't make him a trash player, right? And so it's those type of things. Like, I get it what you're saying, but have back what you're saying with actual basketball analysis. And when other people don't like players, they do back it up with other basketball things. When people didn't like Zach LaVine, when they were everybody was land-based Zach LaVine, right? It was because, oh, well, I don't know if he contributes to winning. His defense at times, he scores, and we feel like it's empty calorie scoring. Now, you can talk against those points, but all you're saying with Josh Giddey is they traded for him when we didn't need another point guard. He was running around with the ball not doing nothing, which I've watched every Bulls game, period, for the last 12 years. I've never seen that, and Josh Giddey's has never seen Josh Giddey running around the ball, quote unquote, not doing nothing, or any players looking at him like, what are you doing? Like, what are you talking about? And that's just what it comes down to. I'm all for Josh Giddey criticisms. I can make Josh Giddey criticisms, right? Now, his defense has been better the last few games, but there have been times in the season where he was unplayable defensively. But he's shoring that up. He's working on that, right? So I listen, to each their own, right? I just don't get with it. Not even just you. Bulls fans that have blind Josh Giddey hate, or that want to see Josh Giddey fail just so they can be right about something else. That's the weirdest thing in sports to me. When you want to see a player team, not you, or this isn't to 8 Lives. When you want to see a player on your team fail just so you can be right about something. That's weird. It's weird. And again, that's not to 8 Lives. That's generally the Josh Giddey hate that I'm seeing. But we'll see what the future does hold. Thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure you guys are following us at Bulls Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns. BullsCentralPod@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We are the number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related, but that's thanks to you lovely and beautiful people. And like I like to end every episode on, go Bulls. Love you guys. See red if you can, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.